As the fire crackled and flickered, casting long, wavering shadows across the group huddled around it, Grandmother's voice, soft but filled with weight, broke the silence.
It said the stars whisper secrets to those willing to listen.
She began, eyes scanning our faces, secrets of those who have fallen from grace. We leaned in closer, knowing what was coming. Grandmother's tales of gods, angels, and spirits who once walked among us. But there was one story, one name, that sent chills down our spines no matter how many times we heard it. The name of Azazel. Grandmother's voice always trembled when she uttered it, and tonight was no different. The tale of Azazel, she continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper, whose name still echoes in the winds of Otomiri, is one I will never forget. It was long ago, before my time, before your time, even before your ancestors. But the memory lives on. It was the story my grandmother told me, and her grandmother told her.
Otomiri was a peaceful village then, wasn't it? Kelechi?
My cousin asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Grandmother nodded, her expression solemn.
Yes, child. Otomiri lived in harmony with nature. The people respected the spirits of the earth, the trees, the rivers. Everything had balance. That was until he came.
He? I asked, already knowing the answer, but still needing to hear it from her. She whispered, her gaze distant.
He wasn't like the spirits we knew. He wasn't like the beings the villagers had been taught to fear or revere. No, he was something far more dangerous. He came not from the earth or sea, but from the stars, and with him he brought ruin.
For a moment, the only sound was the crackling of the fire, and then my brother Uche spoke up.
How did he come here, Nay?
Grandmother's eyes flicked to Uche, her face illuminated by the flames.
They say he fell like a shooting star.
She murmured, her voice low and serious.
Right into the heart of the forest, on the edge of Otomiri. The elders felt it before anyone else did. The animals fled, the air thickened, and the trees themselves seemed to murmur warnings. Something was wrong, but they didn't see him right away.
Did they? I asked, remembering how grandmother had told it before. She shook her head.
No, not at first. But the elders knew something dark had entered their world. Azazel was once an angel, cast out of the heavens for defying the Almighty. But he did not come to Otomiri seeking redemption. No, he came to deceive, to corrupt.
The firelight played across her wrinkled face, casting shadows that made her look older, more haunted. She paused and we waited, knowing the darkest part of the story was coming.
When he finally revealed himself,
she continued,
no one feared him. He didn't appear monstrous. No, Azazel was cunning. He took a form that seemed almost benevolent, beautiful even. The villagers thought he was a gift from the gods, and they welcomed him.
What did he do?
Kelechi asked, his voice a soft tremor in the night. Grandmother sighed deeply, her gaze turning to the sky as if she could still see the stars that had once witnessed the events. He began to teach, she said, her voice carrying the weight of generations. Knowledge no human had ever been meant to have.
What kind of knowledge?
Uche's voice was barely audible.
He showed the men how to shape iron into weapons.
Grandmother replied,
Swords, spears, tools of war, things Otomiri had never seen before. The men were in awe. They thought they were blessed. But with those weapons came something darker. With those tools came greed, pride, and violence.
Before Azazel, she continued,
the men of Otomiri had worked side by side. They shared the land, the harvest, the burdens of life. But after the weapons, they began to quarrel. Men who had been brothers turned on each other. Blood was spilled on the very land that had once sustained them.
And the women? I asked softly, knowing there was more. Grandmother's face tightened, her lips pressing together before she spoke again.
Azazel didn't stop with the men. He taught the women too, taught them to use their beauty as a weapon. He showed them how to wield power through vanity, through jealousy. He poisoned their hearts with whispers of pride and ambition.
Kelechi's eyes were wide as he leaned forward.
What happened to the village, Nay?
Otomiri began to unravel, Grandmother said, her voice like the wind in the trees. What was once a peaceful, close-knit community became divided. The men fought for dominance. The women, once united in sisterhood, turned on each other. Suspicion, greed, pride, they spread like a disease.
And Azazel wasn't done, was he? I whispered, knowing the answer.
No.
Grandmother said, shaking her head slowly.
He wasn't finished. He began to teach them forbidden knowledge. The stars, the occult, how to summon spirits, bend the elements, and harness the hidden powers of the earth. The elders warned the villagers, but they didn't listen. The people were hungry for more.
Her voice grew softer, and we had to strain to hear her.
Otamiri became a place of darkness. Strange rituals were performed under the cover of night. Offerings were made to malevolent forces. The spirits of the land, once friendly, turned angry, and the sky above Otamiri, turned heavy, ominous.
A long silence followed, the weight of her words settling over us like a blanket. Finally, Kalechi broke the silence.
What happened to Azazel?
Grandmother's eyes glittered in the firelight as she leaned in closer, her voice barely more than a whisper.
The night of the storm,
She said,
a storm like no other. The moon hung low, the air smelled of blood. The earth shook, and lightning split the sky. The elders knew what they had to do. Azazel had to be banished. Mama,
she continued,
the most powerful spirit walker in the village, stepped forward. She led the ritual. The villagers gathered, terrified but resolute. A great wind swept through the village as Mama Nkem called on the ancient spirits.
And then, Uche whispered, his eyes wide with fear. Grandmother's voice dropped to an even softer tone, her words almost swallowed by the night. Azazel appeared, she said, but he was no longer the being of light he had once been. His form was twisted, grotesque. Darkness clung to him. He laughed, thinking he couldn't be defeated, but the spirits heard Mama Nkem's call. She paused for effect, her eyes locking on ours. The ground opened beneath him, and with a scream that echoed through the trees, Azazel was swallowed whole. We sat in stunned silence as Grandmother's story settled over us, the weight of it lingering long after the final words had been spoken. The lessons Grandmother's story teaches us to be wary of deceptive gifts and the dangers of greed and pride. Power, when misused, can divide communities, while forbidden knowledge disrupts the natural balance. The lesson is to value unity, humility, and respect for the natural world, and to avoid the lure of dangerous temptations. Thank you for watching. Press the notification bell for more videos, like, comment, and subscribe. Watch out for part 2.